doing that. So I want to talk, first of all, were we good kids over the weekend? Were we okay as far as?
Surprisingly, yes. Yeah, we made it through the fourth.
So
Wait.
after the fourth, did you guys consume a fifth to celebrate that it was not so bad?
Almost.
That's a good idea.
But
So we did have a relatively safe
Quiet.
and sane weekend. We had a few fireworks related fire calls, but by comparison, we had 30 calls in 2020 just on the night of. So
Really?
we were nowhere near those numbers. It's relatively peaceful week.
And of course, there were places where people could do the fireworks. We happen to live near one, so thank you for keeping me awake till way late in the nighttime.
Should have only been 11 o'clock. We're supposed to shut down.
It should have been, but no, it wasn't. So
But
there.
wait, wasn't there that incident up at Lake of the Hills? And that was well after 11.
Yeah. So we can attribute a relatively safe weekend in my mind to people. But we can also attribute instances like what happened at the Lake of the Hills to people.
Two boneheads.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So we always have that X factor, and that's people.
So what happened at the lake?
I think we had some, what was it, 1 or 2 a.m. folks misusing fireworks. You know, when these things get dismantled and used in any way, shape, or form that they're not designed for, problems typically ensue. So boneheads, that's a good way to put it.
So we should probably talk about where we sit today, because we kind of have the perfect storm for everything that could possibly go wrong in the city.
It's bad enough that if you don't have a spark arrestor on, you shouldn't even fart in the forest right now.
Tyler.
No, I'll take that.
Well, no, and I think that this year is special in the fact that we are kind of ramping up for the perfect storm. We're coming into what I would call monsoon season, which can be with or without rain, heavy winds, and a lot of lightning. And we're in that really primed area for that right now, are we not?
Last Wednesday, we had what, 29? Was it 29 lightning strikes that we were chasing between
right.
Washington County and Iron County? We had
29.
We had 3 that actually started down in the New Harmony, Black Ridge area. That Canaryville, Cedar City, New Harmony, BLM all showed up to help on because
Wow.
we didn't know exactly how many others we didn't know about. So we were all hands on deck down there last week for an afternoon.
I brought a fire behavior advisory that some of our federal partners put out. This is through the predictive services that some of the BLM and Forest Service wildlife folks put out. This is good through July 7th, so through today, but we haven't seen conditions moderate. We haven't received any wetting rain.
Any significant
change. And
water.
this indicates that we're still under extreme to exceptional drought conditions over 90% of the state. And that some parts of Utah have not seen conditions this severe since the 1930s Dust Bowl era. I mentioned that we made it through the fourth, but we're definitely not out of the woods. We have another holiday coming up for discharge fireworks. So as we're holding our breaths a little bit that time.
I have a question, and I'm not trying to start anything up here, but has there been some cities in the state have said no, we're just done with fireworks this year. Can that happen in Cedar City, and has that discussion happened?
So we've gotten probably at least weekly, if not daily, we've had that question asked at fire station. State law lays out a procedure where municipalities can restrict areas. The state law also prohibits the blanket. You can't completely say no fireworks, right?
Really?
That is protected by state.
Or how did Salt Lake do it?
They have a whole bunch of really good lawyers.
Okay.
So,
Well, see, and Brian Head's able to do it because of the Wooey Code.
Sure.
The
So-
Wooey Code up on the mountain, they're surrounded by forest, surrounded by.
Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense.
So Brian Head could shut it down more easily than any other incorporated city in Iron County.
right, so the way that works is the state law allows the state forestry, Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands to restrict ignition sources, including fireworks on unincorporated areas, so out in the county. When it comes to municipalities, townships, municipalities, that restriction has to occur within very well-defined geographic boundaries based on current or historical hazardous conditions. So we have to identify areas that there is some reason to restrict the use of fireworks. And that's protected by state law. So those areas include what we call the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface, which Cedar City adopted a WUI zone about 2 years ago. And so anywhere that the city kind of touches trees and bushes, federal lands, the state and federal lands that are adjacent to us, all around the outside of Cedar City.
So basically the east side of town, anything south of Home Depot,
South Mountain out in that area, absolutely.
Westview Estates would be in that.
Yes.
Out around Westview. Now, when we adopted that wildland urban interface, we said anything that's currently existing, so it's already a platted subdivision and they're building homes. We're not going to apply a new rule to them now, say you are now in the WUI, because some other things go into that WUI, such as construction types and clearing trees and bushes and defensible space and some of those things. So we've established what we can preemptively. That's that WUI area.
Now, and I, this is a difficult thing for me to check because I love fireworks, I love sparklers, and I love the little spinny rose things,
Those are perfect.
And I mean, I enjoy doing that, but I'm also sensible enough to say, you know what, we got an unusual situation here.
Sure.
Well, and I think that over the course of the last 2 years with the WUI being in effect in Iron County, we've made some significant improvements in defensible space. I mean, and if you look at the north end of town, I mean, you have Fiddler's Canyon and Ashdown Forest that are all in that same area. And I believe they were established before the WUI, but they're still in a high risk area. And according to the map that's on, I believe, the city website,
Yes.
of where fireworks restrictive, basically in the city limits, you can basically, I mean, putting a blanket over it, light fireworks. And we prefer them to go into larger parking lots, such as the high schools and middle schools,
That's one which I live only a block away from. Thank
Yeah,
you very much.
sorry. But in those WUI areas, then it's next to federal land and you can't light fireworks off in federal land, period, because the feds are in charge of that, let's be honest.
Or the unincorporated.
Or the unincorporated areas or the county boundaries, right? And I think that it's up to all the individuals trying to light fireworks to be educated on that, and if they do, what liability they have in starting fireworks, reviewing your house insurance. I mean, not to put a, shameless insurance plug in there, but
No, it's fine.
figuring out what,
You're bid for this, right?
well, it is a fun radio show. So, but, it's really important that we understand what is around us and in what subdivisions or areas we do live in so that we can make educated decisions to make sure that we're not risking other people's lives. I think the biggest part of fireworks, they're entertainment, but what could they harm? And if they did catch fire, who will be damaged because of that? Or what will be damaged because of that?
And more, maybe a bigger question people should be asking as they do these activities, who's gonna be responsible? Because
Right.
with your actions come responsibilities.
Right, like I'm so
Absolutely.
grateful that the Lake at the Hills incident and even the Laverican incident that was a couple days ago, it was restricted to that dwelling and or that area up at Lake at the Hills. Because you think of if one house would have caught on fire from the Lake at the Hills, what would it have done in the damages? And luckily we have a superior fire service here with Cedar City and Canaryville. It's incredible to me the different types of work that goes into these things. So in going through the different aspects of that.
Well, thanks. And you mentioned the designated areas. What we've done, and we've actually done that for a number of years now, probably 15 years. we've said, as the fire department, as Cedar City, we would recommend that you go to these locations where there's big parking lots and not a lot of vegetation. And so we've concentrated the problem in a few areas, right? So, that allows the fire department to have those areas that we can cover.
More control without
More
being in
control.
control.
Absolutely, because you mentioned personal responsibility, right? Anytime you light these things, once you light it, you can't get back.
Right.
It's going to do something, and it's going to do something violent and dangerous. It's inherently dangerous
That's why it's called a firework.
to use fireworks, right? And so it's important to note, I think, that if you choose to use these things to recreate or to celebrate holidays, then you should be aware of and know that you're responsible for whatever happens. So you've really got to take a look around. Am I by dry brush? You know, if we just do those things and use some common sense, which is incredibly uncommon, it seems.
It's a superpower.
We can do these things with some measure of safety. And so
So at the high schools and the designated areas, do you guys have a presence there when this going on?
we do. So
Like do you have trucks and all that stuff?
we're patrolling. We're kind of
So can't you like at 11 o'clock just douse the whole area and anyone that might be there and say, we're done?
our crews go through at 11 and start very kindly asking folks to wrap it up. Times
I just turn the hoses on. I mean,
that's the
So,
That's not good PR.
perceptions.
I'll come. Because
Deal.
I want to go to sleep.
this has been Wired Wednesday with McKinnon Hanson in studio. Today we have Chief Allred and Fire Marshal Schurz in studio talking fire and what to do
You
to
ready to
prevent it
sleep,
and go through these.
What's that?
Ready to sleep. Sure.
I'm distant.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
this one, okay.
Really quickly, with all the different fire conditions, and we talked briefly about vegetation. I am curious, do I continue to water my lawn so that my, grass is green and my house is quote unquote protected, or do I focus
sorry,
on my
Did
shrubs?
you actually say water my lawn?
Yes, I water my lawn. Lord forbid, it's so much easier to keep than zero scape.
That's fine, short fuels, that ain't gonna go anywhere, let it burn.
Okay,
You'd be surprised what grass can tolerate. And water, unless I'm spraying it on a fire, is kind of out of my rules. But I would say keep your lawn
It's like show like yours,
oh,
they're
cool.
doing some amazing things to bring down water usage and yet still keep lawns green. It's a
Oh,
different kind of
good.
treatment.
I just wondered about the fire prevention.
Yeah,
part of that.
but that's a good point. That there's a lawn that's not totally dried out, slow down fire possibilities and all.
I don't think a lawn's as big a deal unless you have great big huge trees around your house, like something that could get radiant heat off of the roof of the house or something, a torch on its own.
So when we talk about vegetation in the fire landscape, we're typically talking about native vegetation. So if we replace some of that native vegetation out in the wooing, for example, the PGA and the sage and the tall native grasses with some more drought tolerant vegetation, a lot of species of trees that are very fire tolerant, fire resistant, you can do that and be okay. It's when we have a stand of PGA within a couple of feet of
That's
our house.
cedar and pinions for people that don't
There you
talk
go.
fire.
Sorry.
Good job.
Cedar
I'm
trees.
like,
Pinyon and juniper.
let's break it down a little bit.
Everybody thinks the pinions and cedars are cute and wonderful. We consider those just big weeds. And they're big weeds that like to catch on fire and like to grow fire fast. So PJ is pinions and juniper.
I slipped
Okay.
into the fire.
That's okay.
How dare
Anyway,
you.
So yeah, it's a good point. A nice green lawn is a good buffer between your home and hopefully you'll have a nice dry field right next to you. On the
What is it,
vacant lot.
30 feet if you're out
Yeah.
in incorporated
30
like
feet,
30
50 feet, you know, in that range, so.
What do most homeowners overlook as far as being fire prepared in their homes?
In mine, or in the unincorporated or in the town. Like,
Well, it's both.
Both.
so where I also have been in construction my whole life, and I'm one of the first guys in on the jobs. I battle the driveways, I battle access, you know, we're trying to get
Okay,
our equipment into places. A lot of folks, they move out into let's take New Harmony Mountain on Bumblebee, for instance, that's a good one. They're on 20-acre parcels, and they build little smaller driveways because they don't want great big huge driveways going to their place. If we're gonna come in and do a structure protection on your house, because we got a wildfire coming at your house, we gotta be able to get an engine up to your house, have defendable space, be able to turn the truck around, and be able to cut and run in case we're gonna get burned over.
Right.
And the defendable space starts with your 30 feet away from the house, 50 feet away from the house. Because if we've got heat coming on us and we can't stand in front of that heat to protect your house, our lives are not worth saving a structure. So number one is access. You gotta figure, if it's a big structure engine, we gotta have a lot of room up there to be able to turn around, haul the water, get lines out. have
and these engines
guys-
are bigger than school buses, or just about the same like
About
your
the
school
same,
buses?
about the same.
Okay,
And steep driveways. You get the subdivisions out, like Westview Drive, places that way, they have steep driveways. Well, we can't come off the main road and hit their driveway without our rear ends on the
right.
the engines dragging and getting high centered, stuff like
So-
that, especially when you're loaded with water.
I never thought of something like that.
So really quickly, we're running short on time. We have about 2 minutes left. Chief Allred, what are 2 things that you would say to give people, you know, the edge of, you need to be thinking of this when you're either building or doing fireworks? Because we've covered a few topics today, but talk
In
2
an
takeaways.
unincorporated area, defendable space around your house. Because if you don't have it, we're gonna show up on an inspection of the fire front. And if we can't feel that we're safe working and defending your house, we're gonna put a big X on your driveway and nobody else goes into that driveway.
Okay, and chief shirts. Excuse me, Marshall shirts.
Either way,
I like Marshall better.
Marshall.
Should be wearing a star.
You have
Okay.
two things in the city. You know, we deal with a little bit of a different situation. The defensible space is still super important, but just good housekeeping, you know, keep lots clean, keep weeds mowed down or picked, you know, just good housekeeping. That really helps us. If you can do everything that you can do to protect your own home, that makes our job so much easier.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for joining us on Wired Wednesday with McKenna Hansen and Farm Bureau Financial Services. For all your homeowner insurance needs, please give me a call, 435-592-2021, specializing with commercial, farm and ranch, and home and auto. This has been McKenna Hansen with Wired Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us.
You should just do this. You should just do it yourself.
Well,
All right.